Hello, hello, my friends. It is Hondo, and welcome back to the Knights of the Nerd Republic. You know what to do, and stay profitable.
The Nerd Academy podcast is released weekly at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, available on our website at www.thenerdacademypodcast.com and wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find the Nerd Academy podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. You can also help support the show by going to patreon.com/The Nerd Academy podcast, where every donation allows us to bring you more exciting content every week.
Hello there, and welcome back to Knights of the Nerd Republic, the show where your favorite nerds talk all things about the galaxy far, far away. Stuck on the microphone. There we go. If you guys saw our Joker minisode that I recorded, it was just kind of 40 minutes of me kind of talking off the cuff about Joker for All You Do. This is going to be the same thing today, only for Star Wars Outlaws. Again, I played the game. I got it the week, I think it was a week after it came out. I was super behind on that news cycle. Just again, life has been lifing and kept me away from actually talking about this stuff. And I did want to get my voice on the record here for Star Wars Outlaws. So I'm very excited about that. Unfortunately, it sounds like the special guest you wanted to have on for the Darth Plagueis versus the Stranger episode of the Versus series will likely not be able to make it. So that is probably not going to end up getting dropped on Halloween Day. However, if the stars align, how I hope they do, you'll end up getting something else that day. So stay tuned for that. But I'm very excited to talk about Outlaws. I have a lot of opinions. I have a lot of feelings. But before we do that, we do, as always, have a word from our lovely sponsors over at Sunday's Bloody Mary. You guys know the drill. Sunday's Bloody Mary has the most badass Bloody Mary accoutrement in the galaxy with their 3-time award-winning spicy Caesar mix, as well as their mild and traditional mixes if the spice ain't for you. And if you want to get your freak on and garnish that bad boy, you can pick up their also award-winning pickled dilly beans, okra, and asparagus, and some rim salt if you're nasty. As I've said more times than I can count, I love a mean Bloody Mary. I'm a Bloody Mary guy. It's my favorite cocktail. And before Sunday's Bloody Mary, before I saw the light, I was a staunch anti-mix guy. I made that shit from scratch. Any Bloody Mary I ever had, if I wanted it from scratch. I was like, no bottles, no mixes, no nothing. Now I sing a different tune. Sunday's Bloody Mary is the best Bloody Mary you can get. So use the link in the description down below. Use the code TNAP, TNAP at checkout to get 10% off your order and help out your favorite nerds while you do it. So, Star Wars Outlaws. I have a lot of opinions on this game. These are one of those instances where part of me is glad I wasn't able to get to this in the immediate aftermath of its release. At least to talk about it. Because there's a lot of discourse, there's a lot of conversation about this game that I think, as tends to be the case a lot of the time anymore, there ends up being a lot of praise heaped on very heavily in the immediate aftermath of something like this coming out. And then there's a lot of people who are just, as I like to say, shitting out of their word hole, and just spewing bile. And this is something that came up while I was doing research for Phantom Menace Part 3, which again, coming soon-ish, where, the phrase K-Vest chin became a common parlance. It was just a phrase thrown out there. The K-Vest haircut, the K-Vest chin. You have all these weirdos, the anti-woke brigade, talking endlessly about, all this weird shit about women's faces in video games, and they're deliberately making it so women aren't attractive. Very bizarre shit. Bizarre even by this group of people's standards. And Yeah, so I will say, I think unfortunately I fall as a net negative on this game, which I don't like. You know, I am more often than not when I go into something, my objective when talking about analysis and reviewing these sorts of things, you know, more often than not, I come at it from a perspective of like, what is it trying to say? And engaging more in the conversation that a piece of media is trying to start than trying to rip it apart. Um, I think that there's a lot of people on the internet who mistake critique and criticism um, and critical analysis as just complaining. Um, you know, I think there's a lot of people who, anytime there was any positive coverage, and there is a lot of good here, there's this impulse to be like, oh, this is just a commercial for the game, whatever. I think that's silly. But for me personally, I had a suboptimal time playing this game. Now, I will say, you know, I was not as excited for Star Wars Outlaws as I have been for other Star Wars releases. Um, you know, it's not a secret around here. I talk about it all the time when it comes to anything film, shows, games, comics, books. I am infinitely more excited to read or play or watch a story about the Jedi or anything to do with the Force than I am for the scoundrel smuggler type stories. You know, it's why I was so impressed by Solo Star Wars Story is that I was not anticipating giving a damn other than it was a new Star Wars movie. It's why The Mandalorian surprised me so much because I went in going, oh, this is, you know, it's going to be a fun bounty hunter story, and I'm sure it'll be good and it'll be a lot of fun. And it really swept me off my feet. And that's, you know, and that has nothing to do with the fact that like one of the main characters is a force user, you know, like I just the relationship between Din and Grogu, you know, really, you know, spoke to me and everything that show is about. And again, like there have been big exceptions to that rule as of late. And I was like, maybe Star Wars Outlaws will do that for me. You know, the experience of, you know, kind of getting to get the Assassin's Creed Black Flag. You know, a lot of people made Grand Theft Auto comparisons, but in Star Wars, it is an interesting premise, and it's one that I was excited for. You know, the era in which it takes place, I think, is very compelling. You know, there's a lot of stories going on at the same time, roughly around the same time, I should say, as this. You know, your War of the Bounty Hunters, Crimson Reign, Hidden Empire. You know, like all of these stories that are about like the criminal syndicates just kind of doing whatever the hell they want while the galaxy is at war. I think it's a very rich setting. Um, you know, I think that the people who get weird about Star Wars characters showing up in Star Wars, you know, I don't really have a lot to say about that other than I think this game exhibits a lot of restraint and pardon me, and who shows up, how often they employ the recurring characters. I think there's a lot. I think this is a great mix of new and old in terms of location, in terms of character, in terms of ideas and themes. It is a really compelling mixture. I wouldn't say quite down the middle. I'd say it's about 60-40, maybe 65-35 in terms of like new to old. But yeah, I think I like Kay Vess as a character. Um, I think she's fun. You know, I don't think she's gonna become one of those like mainstays of like Star Wars gaming. You know, where like there are a lot of characters who just have made such a name for themselves in this specific medium for this franchise. I don't necessarily know if she is gonna again she if her name is gonna be, you know, etched into Star Wars gaming history quite in the same way that Cal Kestis already is. You know, but I do think she's a lot of fun. I think she has a lot of really fun, and again, fun is going to be a big word here. There's a lot of fun supporting characters around her. Um, you know, I think ND5 is really compelling. I think he's very fascinating. This is also going to be very spoiler filled. Not very, but I'm not going to mince words about spoilers. Um, I think the central drive with ND is really interesting. I think it's a great reflection of the story that Kay is on, where she views making it big and making a name for herself and becoming the next Han Solo or Lando. Like fulfilling that role as like this, great, larger than life outlaw, a scoundrel type. Is how she will A, find fulfillment, and B, find liberation in her life after being kind of locked down by the stratified society on Cantonica. And this central theme of agency, and at what point do you claim your freedom, and at what point do you just kind of have to choose freedom? I think it's a very interesting, like, kind of central thrust here, and it's an idea that we don't really see in Star Wars a lot. We see big ideas about agency a lot with the clones. Like obviously we're coming off the final season of the Bad Batch too. So this whole idea of like, what do we do with our lives when the function that was thrust upon us is no longer in place. That's a really interesting idea, that is explored very well with the clones, but here it is so much more of a everyday struggle to find that agency, to find that self-reliance, but not just a self-reliance like that. It's very insular. I think Kay has to unlearn that, where she mistakes a sense of freedom from these very confining oppressive systems to that she becomes this like rugged individualist, where she is where it's just her and Nyx against the world. The Zabrak bartender, who's like kind of an adoptive father figure for her, whose name is escaping me. I think Bran. Um, Correct me in the comments. I think it's Bran. But he's trying to help her. He's like, hey, don't worry about paying for the room. Hey, don't worry about this. Hey, don't worry about that. I just need you to watch your head. I need you to stay cool. She's like, no, I got it. I'm cool. I got it. I'm cool. And on one hand, in the Star Wars scoundrel tradition, it has a lot in common again with a young Han Solo. When you look back at Solo, a Star Wars story, where he is this, he's trying to be this larger than life hotshot. He hasn't quite earned his stripes yet. Corellian pants pun notwithstanding, but he hasn't quite earned his place there. So he's kind of faking it till he makes it, and we see the way that this kind of sloppy, unrefined charm mixed with a lot of ambition kind of snowballs into Han believing his own hype enough to get through, but knowing deep down who he really is. And I think Kay, from a writing perspective, from a characterization perspective, soars because she doesn't quite go down that road. And she is allowed to be very unique. And that's what I do appreciate about her. Um, is that again, she bucks the rugged individualism for a sense of community by the end, where she, and as I started this whole idea with ND5, that this whole idea of he is enslaved to Jalen, um until that restraining bolt can be popped off. And once he loses the bolt, he takes back his agency and he actively chooses to lay down his life. In the same way that Kay is able to forge community, with the Brombrack explosives expert, and her Rhodian technician friend. That like it is a slow building up of a community that they can all rely on together to rely on each other, as opposed to, again, this very insular, like it's me and Nyx against the world. And I think that is very compelling. I think it's very interesting. um I do love and again, I'm talking about a lot of the stuff I did really like about this up top. um I love this idea that whether it is the galaxy at a galactic scale with the Empire, or in the underworld with all of these crime syndicates, is that the through line is that the people in power do not give a damn about the little guy. and that all of the people in power are going to make a lot of justifications as to why what they are doing is good for other people. Some people are more give more of a damn to make those justifications and make those arguments than others. I do think that at some level, Lady Kira of Crimson Dawn does believe that what she's doing is to the benefit of the galaxy, and that she does have more of an anti-imperial streak to her than I think some of the other syndicates do. Like I think she like obviously she cares more about fighting the Empire than the others, but at the end of the day, it is about maintaining Crimson Dawn. The Hutt cartel kind of unabashedly is just too big to fail. And it is happy to play ball with the rebellion here and there. It has a lot of deals with the Empire. They do their own thing. The Pike Syndicate, who I to this day have the absolute worst possible relationship with. I think they want to have that same level of too big to fail as the Hutt cartel, but they haven't quite gotten there yet. So pretty much anybody and everybody is kind of is stepped upon to get there, and we see that in Book of Boba Fett, right? Where we see the Hutt cartel has absolutely done as many horrible things, if not more, than the Pike Syndicate, but they did it so long ago that their power is just kind of feels like a default for the galaxy, where we have all collectively as fans watched the Pike Syndicate do heinous things like annihilating the tribe of Tuskens that Boba Fett was running with, like sending Cad Bane to assassinate Cobb Vanth. The chattel slavery in the mines of Kessel in Solo. We have seen the Pikes do so much heinous shit personally that it's kind of taken for granted what the Hutts do, and I think that's interesting, because I was excited to work with the Hutts, because part of me is like, yeah, Jabba, hell yeah, I want to get into the palace, I want to hang out, I want to see Han on the wall, I want to, I'm wearing my Palace Pals Roosevelt for this because I wanted to hang out in Jabba's palace a little bit, but I made a point of fucking the Pikes over every chance I got. Does that make me a hypocrite? Probably, but hey, it's a rough and tumble galaxy out there, and the Ashiga clan is cool. I have no real big opinions on the Ashiga clan, other than it's cool. But yeah, no, but it's just all these big networks of power, and it's all showing that you either find strength and fulfillment in community, or you are a one-man army against the Hutts or the Pikes or the Empire or Zarek Besh. And spoilers, those last two things are the same thing. Something I figured out pretty early on in the game. But yeah, and again, just continue to sing Kay Vess's praise as a character. And again, I don't know what pedestal she might get put on as a character, 3 years down the line, how people are going to feel about her. I think she's compelling. I think she's interesting. She's not my favorite new Star Wars game character. Kyle Kestis, he's a Jedi, so I'm more interested there. So that's hard for me. But I really do like the fact that Kay Vess kind of recognizes the good of the rebellion, but also was like, nah. Because again, I would think it would have been really easy and really safe for this game to devolve into, and now you're a member of the Rebel Alliance and you're going to help, many Bothans die to acquire these Death Star plans. That would have been incredibly easy to write and predictable in a way. It's yet another scoundrel with a heart of gold. It's Han, it's Lando, it's Dash Rendar, it's Kip Durin, it's so many of these, Kyle Katarn. It's so many of these characters who all kind of like fall into this mold, and I'm very happy that Kay got to be her own hero, who got to be her own anti-hero in many ways, because again, and that's very much in the player's control. What syndicates are you okay with buddying up with? I went with Crimson Dawn and the Hutts. I'm sure there are people who are living it up with the Pikes, and I think you got to look yourself in the mirror over that personally. But hey, like I said about the Hutts, in terms of gameplay, this is going to be where we start to take a bit of a negative. In terms of gameplay, I will say the gunplay in this is really satisfying. Um, I wish I wish that the game allowed you to be a little bit more choosy in whether or not you wanted to go guns blazing, um, and kind of like balance accordingly to that. And I don't know how that works. And I know that the way the skills work, that's another thing I have opinions about. But the gunplay I think is really fun and satisfying. I like getting into a shootout, a reasonable shootout, especially when you get your bearings and you figure out like the best ways to deploy nicks, to create distractions. You see a sniper who's like kind of being a pain in the ass, but you have more basic infantry right here that you need to take care of. You can very conveniently, send nicks, distract the sniper long enough to pop these guys, and by the time you've successfully eliminated these guys, you can then let it ring out on a sniper or whatever. I think that it gives you a lot of fun options in combat, geographically, where it puts you, and the way the enemies deploy. I found a lot of enjoyment, being able to bottleneck troopers. There's a mission after you first encounter Lando where you're basically helping the rebels move material off of Akiva, I want to say. And he's you're with these rebels, and but you're the main one, catching bodies. And it's all of these stormtroopers coming through these like really tight bottlenecks in the rock, in the stone, in like the forests of Akiva. And I had a great time, equipping the heavy like explosive round blaster pistol module, and just to come in bottleneck and drop like two or three in one volley. Like again, very inventive, very fun, with the actual like we're live, we're shooting combat stuff. And after that, I have a lot of opinions. I think that Star Wars Outlaws was not ready to ship. I think that the game lacked polish in a lot of places, and I understand that is no pun intended, a feature and not a bug of modern games development at this point. It doesn't mean that we have to accept shitty business practices, uh, but I do know that it is the standard. Unfortunately, much to everybody's chagrin, this is how this works now, and I find myself really questioning some of the decisions that feel overly complicated. For example, I think it's really cool, this whole idea of, you got to go meet somebody and then they'll like teach you a skill, and then you got to go complete all of these different objectives to upgrade that skill. I think that's really cool in theory. I think it is also incredibly overly complicated, and at least in my experience with the game, this is just me, I think it is incredibly limiting in how much you can actually get done at a time. I think being able to, I wish the game kind of passively went, "Hey, here's this," or you got taken on mission, or like there were specific missions to complete for these things, as opposed to just, "Hey, just like if you get a chance, shoot a guy on a speeder bike and a few enough times, and we'll give you something." It felt really disconnected and messy to me. And there's just so much going on in the game, that also just looks incredible. That's another thing that I think goes without saying. The all the locations look incredible. Tatooine is remarkable. I cannot believe that that there's a Star Wars game where my favorite location might be Tatooine. Um, and I'm a big Tatooine hater, and I fucking love it. The score is remarkable as well. That main theme, with that kind of like industrial, almost trap beat going, with those very cinematic Star Warsy strings. It sounded like Junkie XL and Michael Giacchino like collabed. It sounds like a Giacchino Junkie XL joint, and I like it a lot. But like I said, I think it is overly complicated, the skill acquisition, um, a little too overly complicated. And that kind of took away from it. Again, I like the novelty of it. I like find this person, and I don't think that it just giving you like a random set of things to achieve is very conducive to the gameplay. I also think it's, I personally, I went through the game without a shock prod because I just kept forgetting to go back to it. And maybe it is a fault of my own that I need these games to be just a little bit more on rails. But I just didn't get a shock prod. Just didn't. It's fuck it. It made stealth a lot more difficult for me. I had to base my entire stealth gameplay around how quickly I could recharge my stun round on my blaster. So for example, when you're sneaking through Jabba's palace to save Nyx, I couldn't just do stealth takedowns on Gamorrean guards. I had to fire a stun round, let him go, ooh, get all wibbly wobbly, and then come up and then punch him out, and then hide and wait another 40 seconds for my stun round to finish cooling down so I could shoot the next one and then bum rush him and hope I didn't get swarmed. So and again, part of that maybe I'm playing the game wrong, and I'm 100% capable of admitting maybe I am playing the game in a way that is more conducive to somebody who needs this stuff to be on rails. I'm fully okay with admitting that. But yeah, in terms of the lack of polish on the game, I encountered more bugs, I think, in this game than I have with any other game before. I've run into some games that made me force quit in Spider-Man, all three, Spider-Man, Miles Morales, and Spider-Man 2. All gave me issues that made me force stop the game. Same with Jedi, both of the Jedi games. And again, I know that is a product of the game's not, being done, and it's, we're going to keep patching them as we go, whatever. And I also understand that is also a sincere thing. Once a couple millions of people get their hands on the game, they're able to effectively play test it harder and faster than in a room of like maybe a couple hundred people could. So I understand, like, there's something like, okay, I get it, but there are others that I'm just like, come on. For example, I don't know if this is a common thing. I encountered more audio bugs in this game than I think I can count. A lot it did not do a good job of, canceling out like ambient dialogue while other like important story or mission dialogue was playing. To use an example, because I just replayed Spider-Man 2 after 1 year to revisit it. I had a blast. Trying to do an episode about that as well. I think, like it does a really good job of like, somebody calls Peter or Miles, so like Miles, he's swinging around the city. He gets a phone call from Rio. He's like, hey, mom, what's going on? And they're talking and they're talking. And then if you cross past a mission or a side thing, like a crime is being committed or there's a symbiote running amok or whatever, he'll go, hey, mom, hold that thought. I'll call you right back. Click. And then, oh, man, I got to go stop whatever. There's a really good job of that. That never happened here. If Kves walked past something and she would make an idle comment or she would start talking to an animal, and then I would randomly get a, comlink transmission from ND5, I would be hearing Kves talking to a Womp Rat while also talking to ND5, while hearing ND5 while Kves is still talking to the Womp Rat. And it was just incoherent. And it happened so many times, and I was kind of in the dark about what was going on for several missions because I kept encountering this bug. And I kept trying to restart the game, and it kept happening. Hold that thought, because I have a really big instance of that ruining the entire finale of the game for me. I ran into several bugs where I would be, it would be like, okay, so for your next part of this mission where you're tracking down this shipment of whatever, or you got to find this guy, I'll go into a cantina and I got to sit at the bar. I got to kind of post up at the bar, put my arms on the thing, kind of stand there and eavesdrop on a conversation. I think I had 3 or 4 missions where the little press R3 to lean thing just did not come up. It just didn't show up. And I was really, really frustrated by that. And again, I spent like 20 minutes. I thought I was wrong. And then eventually, after 20, 30 minutes of just running around a cantina and it's saying search area, find a lead or whatever, and I run the length of the cantina. I go up into the penthouse. I go into the basement. I'm running around like a crazy person, and I'm like, okay, fuck it, time to Google. And I Google it, and it goes, oh, so supposed to be right here. And I retrace my steps, and I went exactly to the spot that I had tried to go to organically several times. It just wasn't working, so I had to restart the game and go back into the bar, do everything, find it, and then start the mission. Um, it slows down the gameplay and it disincentivizes wanting to engage with the game past a certain point. I think I may have run into more of those than I realized, and that's why I've had a hard time like getting some of the tasks to upgrade done adequately, because I go by something that I'm like, oh, this looks like I'm supposed to be here, and then just nothing happens, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess not. That looked cool though, and then I keep going. It's really frustrating. Um, I also think it's kind of weird that you have no real ability to defend yourself on the speeder bike. You'll build up the momentum and you'll go into the slow-mo and you kind of like pick targets and then pop them. I just think it's weird that there isn't like a forward blaster cannon mounted on the speeder bike. Um, for defense. I think that just the idea of like being in like a thrilling speeder chase, I think again, running away is fun and it's thrilling, and there are moments of satisfaction if you're able to go fast enough and maneuver enough to lose people tailing you. In my case, it was the pikes a lot. But it kind of loses its luster when you can't fight back, or when you have to wait until you're getting wailed on to fight back. That was something that I thought was a little silly and undercooked. Um, I had quite a few graphical issues. Situations where I think there's a lot of environments that are structured in such a way that like if you kind of get knocked asunder in a fight, you end up trapped behind a boulder. I was replaying right before I started just to kind of get my hands back on the game a little bit and get a feel again. Um, I was doing a job for the huts on Akiva, and I was on this like little plateau in a little firefight, bobbing and weaving, and one of the pikes with the big quarter staff that like projects a shield from it came up to me, hit me, and Kay like kind of fell back and then floated in the air for a minute and then fell behind a boulder, and I was stuck there. I was like, well, I gotta restart from the next checkpoint, and I was doing a pretty good job fighting them off too. So stuff like that, it just felt really unpolished. I was just running into bug after bug after bug, um, up to and including the big one that really, really disappointed me. Where the big thrilling battle, you confront, Jalen, and you make your way off of that Star Destroyer, and the entire, might of the Imperial fleet is coming down on you and your one little ship. And the rebels are going to try to get there in time to save you, but things are looking bleak. And then whatever syndicate you had the best relationship with shows up to back you up. In my case, Crimson Dawn, which was a really cool. It's a great way to pay off player engagement. Is that it's different every time. Depending on what syndicate you're working with best. I can't imagine what it looks like for the other syndicates. I don't know what Pike Mafia Don is like, hey, K Vest, we're here to help you, or like if Jabba or Bib Fortuna is like, hey, K Vest, we got your back, bud. It feels like it only works if it's Crimson Dawn, like narratively. Uh, it's the one that makes the most sense. Part of me wonders if they banked on everybody wanting to work with Kira. That was the one that made the most sense, and I want to look at the cutscenes and see how many people got, the Ashika clan or the Pikes or whatever. All of that to say, when I'm aboard the Trailblazer and I'm trying to escape, none of the audio worked. And I encountered that bug in several space battles where the audio cut out. And I, several times, every time, exited out, closed the game. I even restarted my PlayStation a few times in the other instances before. I get to the big final battle, and the only audio playing is this very muffled, low in the mix part of the music from the television, and then the only other audio I can hear is like the sound of the missiles firing out of my controller. And I was like, ah, god damn it. So I do it again. Quit the game, close the game, restart the PlayStation. Go back into the mission, audio still not working. And I did that several times. And it just didn't work. So I had to go through the entire big finale of the game with no audio. Um, it was incredibly deflating. You know, I truly think I might have a lot. I don't. I think that losing the ability to truly engage and be thrilled by this big final space battle, I think really kind of took the wind out of my sails, and it was a kind of like the final nail in the coffin for me to go, I don't think I really love this game that much. Um, they say it was just incredibly defeating, you know, like I can't, and I was trying to imagine, I'm trying to go back to like Jedi Fallen Order, playing that final battle for the first time, you know, where, you know, you defeat Second Sister, you know, you disarm Trilla, and then Vader shows up and the audio cuts out and you can't hear the that's not there. You know, none of the, you know, it's him, the shadow from Seer, and you can't hear, you know, Cal, you know, running for his life and BD beeping and all the metal being ripped off of the wall in Fortress Inquisition. You don't get any of that. It's just a silent sprint and the occasional of whenever you need a stim coming out of controller. It was really disappointing, and it really took the wind out of my sails and my ability to really invest in the excitement of the ongoing story, because the finale for the main game was just so incredibly uh, hamstringed. And you know, and I think that was and I think that might be the sticking point for me, is this game was unfinished past the point of it being like, there's a couple bugs here and there. You know, the biggest bug I encountered with Jedi Survivor was if I double jump dashed coming off of the Mantis after landing on Kobo, the frame rate dropped to like 1 and it was like half a pixel. And then it recovered immediately after, and I ran back into Pyline Saloon. That was not the case here. I ran it again. I was not able to start missions. Audio kept cutting out. The audio became unintelligible in several places. You know, I got into Jabba's palace today, and you know, Bib Fortuna and Jabba the Hutt immediately start talking to me at the same time. Bib Fortuna is setting up job opportunities while Jabba's like, oh, okay, you know, and it's like, oh, cool. Like Jabba's like, hey, you fucking scoundrel, I heard you did good shit. Welcome back. While Bib Fortuna is trying to be like, hey, here are some jobs you can only get now that you have a really good relationship with the Hutt cartel. All of it getting kind of like smushed up, and it's on the whole less enjoyable. And you know, I find myself really disappointed by that. I'm looking forward to whatever DLC comes when it happens. You know, I didn't buy the season pass. I'm waiting to hear, you know, what all the DLC is. I know there's the Hondo Onaka stuff, and I know there's the Lando one. We'll see how it turns out. A couple other just positives off the top of my head. I do want to say I had a lot of fun with Sabak. That was really fun. You know, friend of the show, host or DM for Ionized Bastards, Michael McCoy. I'm coming for you, buddy, in Sabak. Go to his channel. He has a crazy game of Sabak he played that went on for like, I think it's like 15, 20 minutes, where it was just utterly insane game of Sabak that I highly recommend people watch. But yeah, on the whole, I gotta say I'm pretty underwhelmed by Star Wars Outlaws. It may redeem itself in the future with DLC and further patches. I was still encountering some of those bugs today when I played it, you know, about a month out. So we will see. But those are my thoughts on Star Wars Outlaws. If you guys want to follow me on social media, you can find me at Dark Jedi 2552 on pretty much everything. And you can find the Nerd Academy podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on our website, thenerdacademypodcast.com, where if you want to get your hands on some TNAP merch, you can go ahead and click that student store link. And he lost the clip. Oh, well. And if you want to help support the show, you can donate to our Patreon as well. I can't find any of my clips. What the hell is going on here, guys? Here we go.
Hey, give me $1.
And Student Store.
TeePublic.com.
Thank you to our $10 patrons, Ray Clausen and Paco, who is back to calling himself Elfrona, because I guess it's just that time of the year. Stay tuned to the channel. Venom: The Last Dance review coming. Spider-Man 2 1 year later on its way. Hopefully we will have the time to release an Agatha All Along review on Halloween. So stay tuned for all of that. Thank you for watching and listening and putting up with my extended accidental hiatus. And may the force be with you always.
Stop! Move away from the cookie jar!